Welcome, welcome, ladies and gentlemen of the internet, to episode number 264 of Gaming the Industry. My name is Shank, and we have a special show for you tonight. And basically, we're talking about one thing, one game. And that would be Assassin's Creed Valhalla. But before we get into that, I'm joined by managing editor Bradford. Well, that's cute. Nope. Yep.
I'd be muted this entire time on my end. Um, so the official MMORPG stream didn't hear any of that. And I can't be bothered to go back. Brian's having audio issues. He'll join us as soon as he won't join us. You guys have watched this show for long enough. You guys have been around long enough to know this is just a ruse. But we're talking about Assassin's Creed. We are going to basically talk about our specific impressions thus far. The problem is I'm 45 hours into this game. Shank's like 45 hours into this game too, but he hasn't made it to England yet.
No, I'm like 12 and a half.
He hasn't made it to just for like comparison's sake. I was in England by hour 3.
I don't understand that.
I don't understand you. So what I will say is stay tuned on the site. We've got a few things hitting. I mean, if you guys saw the site earlier this week on Monday, we obviously didn't have our full review because it's a very long game and we had a week to play it in addition to all of the other things. Like, I'm re-reviewing EVE Online right now too, guys, because I'm a masochist. So stay tuned. I'm trying is the key word here, to have, the full review ready by Friday. That's probably not going to happen. Like I said, about 45 hours into the game, and I still don't feel any nearer the end than I was even this morning. And I've been playing it all day. I took the day off of my other job to do this all day. But chances are, and I you can kind of talk a little bit more about this, but I think your thing will probably hit before mine. Shank is doing like he did with his with Watch Dogs, where we're doing a technical analysis, port report type thing for Valhalla. We're gonna try this with a few different games, and then kind of reevaluate if this is something we want to keep doing moving forward. So if you guys like it, definitely let us know on the site so we can keep doing them. Shank works really hard on them, and they're really good. I mean, his Watch Dogs one was really, really good. One of the best ones out there on the internet. Valhalla, I've already read his initial draft, and it's pretty good too. So yeah, I don't know when you're when you think you'll have that done. I have it on the schedule for Monday, but there's always the chance that gets pushed back. So
Yeah, I'm so the actual written part, so the article slash script is pretty much done. I said script deliberately because we're looking to do a video version of this. So I've started the video version of the port report, and I have all the footage and assets, and it's just a matter of assembling it. So I'm going to try the keyword, try to get it out on for Friday. I'll see what I can get done tonight and tomorrow. But yeah, that we're aiming for Friday for the port report, you guys.
So I've got a few screenshots that I'm kind of putting up on the stream on my end. Nothing spoilery, just kind of, if you want to see what England looks like later in the game, there's like no identifying markers, so you just kind of have to know what England looks like. But yeah, so Assassin's Creed. This is a game that I've been looking forward to for quite a while. specifically when they announced that they were going to be going to Viking Age England. Me personally, I'm very much a fan of that time period in history, mainly because you look at both sides of my family. I'm very much a product of this time period. My mother's family is Scottish, and the part of Scotland where the McNaughtons come from is one of those areas that has, Viking settler roots. My father's family is very obviously British. I mean, my last name is Bradford. Doesn't get more British than that. So for me, like, this time period has so much just meaning, I guess you could say. I'm basically like the most generic white man out there in terms of like my background and everything. And there's very few things in this in history that I can celebrate my ancestors did. Cool, the British Empire was awesome in terms of just it being an empire, but it was also did horrible things to people throughout human history. But at least we had Viking blood or something. I don't know. So this time period for me is very interesting because it's the melding of my two family histories. So much so, like, when I found out that this was going to be the setting, I started going back and looking at all the old Viking sagas that I used to read, all of the old stories set in this time period. Thankfully, this is very much in the trying to think of the word, the zeitgeist, I think is the word I'm thinking of. It's very much in the culture right now because you've got multiple different TV shows set in this time period. You've got The Last Kingdom, and then you've got History Channel's Vikings set in this exact time period. We've also had multiple games lately that kind of celebrate this time period as well, with Total War Britannia, Thrones of Britannia, excuse me. You also have Crusader Kings 3, which one of the major time periods you can choose in that is this exact time period, the invasion of the Sons of Lothbrok. It's obviously after the Great Heathen Army, when they came and kind of ravaged things. You have this game now, and it helps that I've actually been listening to like the Saxon stories. That's the novel series that the Last Kingdom TV show is based off of. So like myself, the last 3 or 4 months has been firmly set in this world, my mind has firmly been set in Viking era England. So when it looked like I was going to be the one to do this review, because it wasn't originally going to be the case, I wasn't originally going to be doing this review. A little bit of inside baseball here. Shank was originally going to be doing it, but then we kind of made the decision before we found out that this other game was being delayed, that he would do Cyberpunk and I would do this, because if we got Cyberpunk early, we kind of needed to start on it. And then like 3 days after we made that decision and I had already like used the code, Cyberpunk got delayed.
Yeah, but at this point, I already had a graphics card review.
Yeah, at this point, you were already working on your 3070 review, so it was kind of moot from that point forward. There is so much to talk about with this game, and I kind of don't want to talk about a ton because...
All right, thanks for joining, guys.
Yeah, here's the deal. It kind of depends on how much you guys even want to know, how much you want to even know, Shank. Going into it, because there are so many, like if you have been paying attention to this game, there are still so many things that I think have just not been mentioned purposefully for you to explore and see for yourself. I haven't read any reviews personally because I have this thing where if I don't make an embargo with my review, I purposefully don't read other people's reviews because I don't want their thoughts to influence mine, right? First of all, it's a very easy way to have something stuck in your mind that you think is an original thought. It turns out you're plagiarizing somebody else. It's also, it's one of those things where I have a very specific way of writing, and I don't want anybody else's, thoughts influencing my own. I want it to be obviously I want to have discussions with people who are reviewing it with me. And I have had a few, and I've talked a little bit about it with a few friends of mine who aren't even reviewing, but don't care about spoilers. But at the end of the day, I want my thoughts on the review to be 100% my own. So I purposefully don't look at reviews. That said, there is a major thing in this game that I'm really hoping reviews didn't talk about. there are some major plot points I'm really hoping reviews didn't talk about, because I want people to be able to experience it for yourself. I remember when I stumbled upon some things, big smile across my face. Specifically, like, I remember you mentioning you had no idea how big Norway was going to be.
No. Let me set this up, okay? If you guys know anything about me, and you might know if you're a longtime listener of the show, Bradford certainly knows, having known me for about 7 years.
Yeah.
I love open world games. I am genuinely, I tweeted this out earlier today, but I really do believe I am made for open world games. I love exploring. I legitimately do explore every single square inch of a map. I find the edges and I traverse the edges and I explore absolutely everything. The bigger the map of the world, the happier I am. And I don't say that glibly or hyperbolically. Like, I genuinely love massive open worlds. When people start feeling fatigue with open worlds, I know there was a lot of fatigue felt with Odyssey, given just the bloat, quote unquote, perceived bloat of that game and the size of the map, etc. I was in my element. I was as happy as a pig in mud. I absolutely loved it. So, that sort of context out of the way. I guess maybe this requires a disclosure. I don't know. So I bought the collector's edition.
It doesn't, but that's fine.
No, I bought the collector's edition, but the code for that game was unlocked early for me by Ubisoft. I don't know if that bears mention, but just mentioning it here. Anyway.
That's fine. Those of you watching my stream, the collector's edition is on full display on my screen, and I'm very jealous of it.
Yeah, so I'll talk about the contents here in a second, but so I got the collector's edition really for purposes of starting this technical analysis early, right? Because this kind of stuff you need as much time as possible to look at everything. I looked at the Norway map. I don't think that is not a surprise or anything, because they have talked about they being the developers, unless you're in a complete blackout like Brian was.
Then don't listen to the podcast, Brian. Brian, please don't listen to the podcast.
He's already playing the game, dude. So there's two regions, right, in this game that the developers and team have talked about. There's obviously England, and there's Norway. Norway, I looked at the map of Norway and I was incredibly shocked at how big it was. I thought it was just going to be like a relatively small tutorial area, because that's generally how RPGs start. Mm-hmm. I looked at the map and I was like, wow, this is pretty freaking huge. And I sent a picture of it to Bradford. And then as I was putting my phone down, my hand nudged the thumbstick, which zooms the map in and out. And I noticed that it zoomed all the way out, and basically I panned north, and the map was twice as big as I thought it was. And I legitimately lost it. I was so stoked because Norway was twice the size I originally thought it was. And this is before I get to England. This is why I am 12 and a half hours in the game and I have explored about half of Norway.
Yeah.
Bradford is shaking his head.
Yeah, I'm shaking my head. I'm not even sure if you have the stream pulled up, but you knew I was shaking my head.
So the maps are huge. I think it's a good time at this point to kind of talk about a few different things here. So I mentioned Brian sort of goes on media blackout. That's just how Brian prefers to approach a lot of his entertainment, which is fine, right? A lot of people do that.
Yeah.
I am the complete opposite of that. I love as much information as I possibly can get, because I want to know what I'm buying and I want to know what I'm in for. Mm-hmm. Both approaches I think are totally valid, by the way. But so for me, Bradford, you had mentioned they had talked a lot about this game, but there's still stuff they haven't actually they flat out didn't discuss in their streams and whatnot.
Yeah.
And to me, that makes me happy because, as you know, I have consumed every ounce of information about this game ever since it was even in the rumor mill 2 years ago.
The streaming, just to put it into perspective, the streaming content embargo was so restrictive, I didn't even bother trying to stream when I could have. Because we could have been streaming this since last Friday. Like, I could have been streaming this during our extra live stream over the weekend.
Yeah. But we were worried about, what can we even show?
I was so worried about it, and I was already past the points in the game that the embargo details allowed you to talk about. But even then, there were certain things inside even those embargoed areas that you weren't allowed to show. Like if you guys have played any of the previous Assassin's Creed games, specifically not Origins, Odyssey, they kind of repurposed the zealot system, I think is what it is in Odyssey.
The cultist?
Cultist, yeah. In this, it's the Order of the Ancients. So that entire system is in this game again. But you weren't allowed to show that screen on your stream. But if you already had it unlocked, that means whenever you would go into your menu, you couldn't go over to that side of the screen because you could then accidentally show it and break the embargo. In fact, I think they didn't even want you to go into your menu.
Yeah, and I don't think they even talked about that like in any of their stuff.
No, they haven't. They hadn't. Now today they did like a super high level 2-hour stream showing off some of the later portions of England without spoiling any story. But I mean, it was stuff like that kind of kept me from streaming it because I didn't want A, to break the embargo, but B, I mean, there's just certain things in this game that I've played so far that I don't want to accidentally spoil in any way, shape, or form, because there are a lot of experiences, like especially if you're a fan of Norse history, if you're a fan of this time period, there are a lot of things that I think will make people like myself, like I know Shank, you're a fan of this time period too.
Dude, God of War,
smile.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love. I have been waiting for a Viking themed open world game for as long as I can remember. And this is why if you look at my stream, I shared out. I bought the collector's edition for this game.
I've got it pulled up on mine right now.
I have not bought a collector's edition for a game since Skyrim 2011. So that tells you how much I've wanted a game like this. The collector's edition, it definitely was expensive, no doubt. But I mean, you buy things like this with your heart, not necessarily your head. And it's really cool. It comes with a steelbook case. Even though I got the PC code digitally, it's still you still have a collectible case there. You have a soundtrack, which is actually more tracks than I thought, but I don't have any disc drives at all in my house, so that's going to be interesting. It comes with that sort of the marker. I don't even know what it's called. It's like the commemorative poster thing, whatever, counting your collector's edition number, and it also comes with a few lithographs from concept art, which are extremely pretty, and also a statue of female Eivor on her longship.
It's the default Eivor because Eivor is a feminine name, and there are actually a few moments in this game. I'm playing as male Eivor, but I've been referred to as she. So.
Yeah, and there's some history behind that because like this game, it was originally only supposed to have female Eivor, but Ubisoft marketing guy who no longer works there, by the way. Anyway, so it has the female Eivor like statue, which is actually larger than it looks in any image, with Sunan, and you have a small little like sort of character bust of male Eivor, or not male Odin.
No,
I guess he
looks
is
like
male.
Eivor.
No, it's Odin.
Really? It looks like
Yep.
Eivor.
I'm pretty sure it's. I think it's supposed to be Odin. If not, it's just.
No, I'm looking at
Eivor
it right now.
looked Odin.
It's Eivor.
Okay. So yeah, you have all those things, and of course the actual collector's box, which I think is really, really cool. It just, man, it looks really nice. I've been waiting for a game like this for a long time. So of course I was going to consume every little bit of information, and I'm definitely glad I treated myself to the collector's edition because it just looks badass.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
really
pretty
cool, you
upset
guys.
I didn't buy it. $250 is a lot of money for a video game, though, and that's
It
partly
is.
why I couldn't do it. I have got collector's editions sitting behind me, but it's not because I've bought any of them. I've been very fortunate in my career, but this was the first one since Mines of Moria. I've almost pulled the trigger. This is the second one I almost pulled the trigger on. The first one was Final Fantasy VII Remake, First Class Edition, and that was even more expensive. It's $329 it retailed at.
Jesus, dude.
But it had a massive statue of Cloud on a motorcycle. And if you've played Final Fantasy VII, at least, actually, if you played Final Fantasy VII Remake, at least a quarter of the way through, you understand how badass that motorcycle is. So,
Yeah, yeah. So I think the Skyrim's collector's edition was about the same price as well. It was about $250, and it came with a statue of, oh my God, I forget his name.
Parthenax, probably not.
No, the bad
Yeah,
dragon,
no,
like the boss dragon.
I forgot his name too. That's how little. Speaking of, Skyrim debuted today. I think like 10 years ago,
9 years ago,
9 years
yes.
ago.
Yeah, so that's our reasons for buying this game. But yeah, I mean, how do we even want to talk about? So I guess we can start with like you did a review in progress. Let's
Yeah,
start
so I
there.
mean, I feel like we can talk basically just about what I've already written because if I go any further, I might accidentally spoil something just because I'm so excited to finally talk about this game. And I've been texting this all week, and you guys finally figured out a way to shut me up about it. Is if I want to talk about this, apparently I have to finish The Witcher. Like, not haha, I finished The Witcher, but actually finish it.
Like actually, like to the credits, finish the game.
Yeah. Which at this point, I haven't played that game in a year, so I'm probably just going to start it over. Maybe I'll play it on my Switch.
Switcher.
Yeah, the Switcher. So the biggest things for me that if you haven't played this yet, haven't really watched any reviews, this is one of the few Assassin's Creed games since I think the early games that feels like an Assassin's Creed game again. I didn't really get this feeling from even Odyssey personally. It felt as though the Assassin's stuff was secondary in Odyssey versus mind you, I didn't finish Odyssey, so I could be talking completely out of my ass right now. But from what I played, like the 20 hours I put into it before I kind of got bored of the game, it felt as though it was kind of like, oh, by the way, there's this whole assassin thing. There's this whole hidden ones and Order of the Ancients or whatever they're called, the cultists or whatever they're called in Odyssey. This though, I feel as though it's the one of the first games to kind of really embrace stealth again. Even though it's not back to like the original Assassin's Creed stealth, gameplay, which let's be real, the stealth combat in Assassin's Creed hasn't always been like the greatest stealth out there, but it wasn't bad. If someone like me
Well,
could enjoy
it
it,
was. I don't know. I mean, considering the original Assassin's Creeds came out around the time that we had the legendary Splinter Cell games.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I have a very, very high bar when it comes to stealth, and I'm coming from Metal Gear and Splinter Cell.
Let's put it
And
this way.
when the original Assassin's Creeds were talking about stealth, it wasn't traditional stealth. They really pushed this notion of like social stealth, as in like blending into your environment, and blending into the other NPCs in the crowd. The early Assassin's Creed games did have that, and then it just sort of disappeared. But now
Well, it's
with
back.
this game, the social stealth specifically is back.
It's back, and I suck at it. Just put it that way. What I'm talking about though specifically is in games from Origins on. It's very much Witcher, and how they've done the level gating. In games like The Witcher 3 and other RPGs now. It's not so much an open world, whereas it's, oh, by the way, you kind of really want to be this specific level before you go here. You can go there, but you're probably going to die, which I found out to my
It's
detriment.
very MMO-ish.
Yeah, I found out to my detriment the first time. I thought the place I was raiding was inside one of the borders of the level I was at. Turns out it was power level 250, and I was like 20.
Okay.
So yeah, I was pretty boned. But in terms of like the stealth, like I'm saying, one of the major things it brought back was guaranteed assassination, which is a toggle in the menu. So, and I feel like that's something we should talk about too, is just the level of control you have over the difficulty and accessibility in this game. But you have you can now do a guaranteed assassination like the older Assassin's Creed games if you want. Though the game does kind of tell you, okay, if you do this, that's fine. We're not going to stop you, but this isn't how the game is meant to be played. This isn't how we envision the game to be played. But I like the fact that it gives you that option because it does bring back the old, feeling, at least in my experience, the old feeling of weaving through a city, blending in with monks, sitting on a bench, and then all of a sudden sprouting and, doing my assassination regardless of what the level or power of the specific character that I'm playing, I'm fighting against is, because I then feel as though I'm actually an assassin again. Whereas that was one of my biggest issues with Odyssey and Origins specifically, was I didn't feel as though I was an assassin. It took that part of the name and completely removed it from the gameplay experience, in my opinion. Whereas in
Yeah,
Valhalla, it feels like it's back.
and it's not even like Origins. Some of the even like Black Flag did it too. Like you just
Yeah,
couldn't go up to someone and then hit X and assassinate them immediately. Like it was just
yeah.
if they had like greater health or whatever, like you would hit them and then they would turn around and notice you and you'd have to fight them basically.
What I do like though too, and this is a skill I think they showed off in one of their early streams. This has a massive skill tree, like a massive web of a skill tree. And one of the early skills you can unlock is an advanced assassination technique, where on those guys, if you don't do the guaranteed assassination, you then unlock basically a quick time mini game to assassinate those more powerful enemies. So it still allows you to do a guaranteed assassination, but it requires more skill on your own part. So if you fail the second, like essentially what happens is you do a stealth attack, and then it kind of gives you these two parentheses that kind of close in on a specific area, and you have to hit the button when it hits that area. If you don't, then you then have to fight the guy. But if you do, then it finishes the assassination. I like that too, because it's like, okay, we're going to give you the guaranteed assassination without you unlocking it, but you have to work for it.
Yeah, and that was like I think that's like one of the first skills that I actually unlocked was that advanced assassination or whatever they call it. Because I very much am a stealth player. I'm a ranged and stealth player. And in this game there are like in settlement, not even settlements, but like in enemy encampments or forts or whatever, you'll have, the grunts who are basically there for fodder.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that this game is set up is it will hide some of the better like loot and stuff not near the boss but on the boss, very much like an MMO or RPGs of old. And the way that I approach the game is I will literally stealth my way through the entire fort, only killing who I need to kill, and then once I get to that boss enemy, I'll try to get the drop on him. And with this advanced assassination, for me personally, I feel like it demands more patience and skill from players like me who don't like to just go rushing in and Viking everything. We do still like the stealth. So for me, it's an extra challenge of, first of all, can I sneak up on him? And the AI is not terribly smart, so like it's not that difficult.
Yeah.
But can I sneak up on him? Can I get to where this person is? And then can I take him out, with quote unquote an instant kill with that assassination? And I like that little mini game thing. I forgot that they put that in there, and when I figured it out, I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's the way I'm playing too. In Assassin's Creed games, I'm not a stealth person whatsoever in most games I play, right? You saw me try to play Metal Gear Solid 5. It was basically just
I saw you try to play Last of Us.
Yeah,
seven attempts, you guys.
You saw that. But in Assassin's Creed, I do try to go stealth because, again, I'm playing an assassin, except for that one time where you play a Templar. So I try to put myself in those shoes and try to stealth as much as possible before all hell breaks loose. And I would say in this game, most times I've been pretty successful about eradicating. I'm different than you. I will go through and I will kill every single person in there. And I've been pretty successful overall in like eradicating an entire, camp of enemies stealthily. I've also had it where I've made a mistake and then had to fight every single one of them just as often. So for me, like I do love the fact that they give you those options, and then it does put the onus more in your court puts the ball in your court more if you're doing the advanced technique assassination, because you have to work for it. But the rewards are typically pretty good. You have in each region of the game, you've got mysteries that you can solve, which are kind of like they're not so much side quests. They are like little tiny stories that are, I think puzzle is probably a better word, because some of them you have to kind of solve something. Like I had one where I had to settle a dispute between two people who live next to each other. I'm not going to tell you how I settled it, but I had to figure out the best way to reach an agreement that they would both be happy with in order for me to get my skill points. Another one, I had to find a dude who was trying to dupe me out of some silver. These things take like 2 to 3 minutes to accomplish, and they give you some pretty good experience to get some more skill points. So they're worth doing. They're worth seeking out, and the stories some of them tell are actually kind of funny. The other thing that you'll be stumbling upon and trying to find throughout each of the regions is wealth. And that kind of is twofold. It plays into some of the other mechanics in the game, like the raiding mechanic. But in most settlements, you'll have a specific amount of wealth that you can gather from these areas, and more often than not, it's going to be things like a nickel ingot or a carbon ingot that you use to upgrade your armor and weapons and such. Or you'll be finding supplies to upgrade your settlement, which, I mean, I could talk a little bit about that, but I don't want to spoil too much. You have a settlement, you build it up. The settlement's kind of vital to everything you do. Build your settlement, guys. That's all I'm going to say. But the way you get supplies to build your settlement is you raid. Monasteries all have supplies that you have to gather. The raids themselves, I don't know if you've done a raid yet. You obviously haven't done one in England, but you can still raid in Norway.
Yeah, I've done actually 2 in Norway.
Yeah. So there are different things you can raid. You raid monasteries, obviously, because Vikings, what did they do? They raided monasteries. It makes sense. But you can also raid military installations that are on the coast. So essentially, what I love about the raids is it feels blood pumping. Like the way the camera kind of zooms in on you as you and your Vikinger allies are running uphill to try to take over the area, to gather what wealth you can. You have all the villagers and monks and stuff fleeing from you. It feels, obviously I will never know what it feels like to storm a monastery as a Viking unless this world completely goes to shit in the next 3 years. But
still have 70 days, man.
But what if at the end of the 70 days the world has gone so south that you, me, Brian, and Pete are raiding monasteries?
Hey, man, I wouldn't put it past anyone, because considering like the top Pentagon or the defense or whatever officials are like just gone at this point, we could be heading there sooner than you think.
All right then. Well, you may find us podcasting from Lindisfarne near you.
Yep.
So yeah, I like the way it sets up those raids, but you could even take it a step further. Let's say you want to raid a monastery, but you really don't want to raid the monastery. You could then stealth your way through, kill everyone in the monastery, then start the raid. Like, that's a perfectly viable tactic as well. I've actually done that in some of the early monasteries. If you're watching my stream at all, I've had this picture of Eivor with Sunan, and in the background are some crumbling Roman aqueducts next to a monastery. I just realized that's where I'm at in the game right now. And I didn't put it together when I was loading this up last night. I was this other image where they're playing Orlag. I played against this guy earlier today. Yeah, so raiding is going to be a huge thing, but to be honest with you, unless you're really going to try and level your settlement up as much as possible, which I think you should. I mean, you get some pretty good benefits by building certain things in your settlement. Like you can build a hidden one bureau and start getting missions from the assassins that are in England. You build up a blacksmith to start upgrading your armor and weapons and such, and that's kind of vital. You can also build a barracks, which then you can recruit Jomsvikingur from your friends. You basically create your own Viking raider that can then raid with your friends, and you can hire theirs to raid with you. It's pretty cool.
That's sick.
Yeah, and that's where they're housed. So you build that up, and then you can start doing that, and you actually earn money for it. They actually hire you, and then you get paid the next time you go there, and vice versa. So, for me though, what's been kind of the standout so far is the combat. I think this is the most fun I've had with an Assassin's Creed combat in quite a while. And I liked Odyssey's, but it didn't feel nearly as impactful. The word that you keep using is crunchy.
Yeah, so Origins, okay, so first of all, if you have played any of the Assassin's Creed games since the soft reboot from Origins, so this includes Origins and Odyssey, uh, the the style and setup of this Valhalla should be familiar. Now, that doesn't mean it's the same. There are plenty of differences, but the one area where I really think that they have drastically improved is combat. Like the combat in Origins and Odyssey felt too flowy to me, and not. It was almost like too. It just kind of it was too quick. It wasn't floaty, but it didn't feel impactful. The way that they've done combat in Valhalla, it really feels very crunchy. It feels a lot more like Dark Souls. It feels way more impactful because you can feel, I don't know if it's I mean, okay, I do know for a fact the motion blur, both camera and object, have a lot to do with this because when you're swinging an axe in the previous games, there was no motion blur, so it didn't look like it was carrying the weight of that weapon. But now, because of the motion blur, you see that like on your axe as you're swinging, your shield as you're parrying, like everything just has more impact. And when you do get a hit or when you do parry, your camera shakes for just a split second. And again, it's just enough to drive home the feeling that, okay, I'm actually hitting something. That too, the actual sound of you hitting stuff is way bassier. It's much crunchier. And guys, I cannot tell you how much sound plays a role in selling the weight and impact. And if you don't believe me, go back and play the most recent Call of Duty Modern Warfare from last year. The weapons in that game, the grenades in that game, everything feels so weighty, so much more impactful, and it's because of the sound. The sound design was great. And I think in this game, the sound for combat is equally good. The other thing is, too, you can't just go rush in there and do, just attack, 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 attack. You have to genuinely read your enemy because there are some attacks, at least early on, you cannot block. But
I'm 45 hours in the game. There are still attacks I can't. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. You can actually block those attacks you're talking about early on. You can't parry them.
Okay. So I think the biggest difference for me when it comes to the combat for the previous games is the previous games felt like it was just one sort of like free flowing orchestra, and it just happened. There was nothing really stopping it. But the combat in Valhalla feels a lot more staccato. It's a lot more start stop. It's a lot more let me read my enemy. And it just has a much more Dark Soul. It's closer to Dark Souls combat than any of the combat in previous Assassin's Creed. And they actually have a lot of blood and beheadings and stuff, and that simply wasn't in the previous games.
Dude,
and I think that really helps.
Running in with I've been almost exclusively using my axe and shield because I take it back. I don't know what weapons you've been using.
I've been using an axe and shield so far.
Okay, you can only block those attacks if you're holding up your shield. You can't do it if you have like a warhammer in your offhand, because then if you hold down the button, it performs a heavy attack with your warhammer. So in order for you to block those attacks, you have to have a shield, but it may actually only be...
You can't parry with a warhammer?
You can parry with a warhammer, but you can't block with the warhammer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can't block with an offhand weapon, essentially. You can parry with anything. I've parried with 2 axes, I've parried with 2 shields, I've parried with a warhammer, I've parried with a spear. Don't sleep on spears, guys. Spears in this game... If you get a good spear and you level it up, it's pretty awesome. I'm still trying to unlock the perk that lets me wield a 2-handed weapon with 1 hand. I haven't found it in the skill tree yet, and that should kind of tell you something about what I think of the skill tree. It shouldn't be hidden like it is, but that's a paragraph in my full review. That alone, that idea, the idea to essentially cloud, it doesn't allow...
They're trying to do the Path of Exile thing, but with Fog of War, and I think that works in maps. It doesn't work when you're trying to plan a build.
It doesn't help. Yeah, you can't plan ahead because you don't know what's going to be unlocked. Now, the trade-off is they allow you to reset your skills at any time. So let's
And
say
it's free.
It's free. So let's say you find a skill tree that you like, or you want to toy around with some different builds. You can then just immediately reset your skills and reslot them all. That's great. The problem is the vast majority of their skills that you can be slotting are just going to be kind of small, stat boost. They're not really that impactful. It's the big things like the advanced assassination or the ability to hot swap your weapons in your hand at a moment's notice. So like, let's say you're dual wielding an axe and warhammer like I do sometimes. You can, in the middle of battle, she'll literally flip the two weapons and catch them with the other hands, and then you've got the warhammer in your right hand and your axe in your left, or however you had them to begin with, reversed. And that does play into the way you attack, because these weapons all attack differently. You can't plan out a build though, because you don't know what's coming up. I've been hunting for the one-handed, two-hand weapon skill. I know it's in the game because I've seen videos of people literally dual wielding great swords. And a great sword is a two. There's an enemy I fought in the game that had a great sword in one hand and a spear in the other, and that's how I want. That's the energy I want. I want that.
Wow. I think my biggest advice for new players in the skill tree is focus on expansion first.
Yeah.
Because there's no cost to respec. Now, you shouldn't have to do that. Personally, I think it should just be visible. It should be like Path of Exile, where you can just see everything.
Yep. I don't know how much more I want to talk about, because I could start going on and on and on and on. And I don't want to ruin anything for anybody, specifically because you haven't made it to England yet. I don't want to talk a whole lot about England because I want the first time you really see it for yourself to be that wow moment like it was for me. And I had watched videos. I had, kind of followed everything I could, because Viking era Assassin's Creed, I mean, come on. But those first moments in England are so special. I don't want to take anything away, so I'm probably going to stop talking about Assassin's Creed now.
Yeah.
Play Orlog. Play Orlog. Play Orlog.
Orlog, or the best way I can describe Orlog is it's basically single round quick chess matches, but there's multiple of them.
Here's the issue I found with Orlog, actually, and as you play and win, you actually get more gods, those little god tablets. But the issue I found is the computer will only choose items. They're not trying to hit you with the actual dice. They will only choose dice that also give them god favor. So essentially, you can just kind of mirror that and then win. So there's not a whole lot of strategy involved in the later areas, unless for some reason they don't get all 6 of their dice to give them god favor, and so then you do have to try to block some things, but that's, in my experience, is so few and far between. But it's a nice little pastime, and when you do win, it feels so good, because I've never won a game where I didn't almost lose.
Yeah, I've really only played one game so far, and it was the first tutorial game when they're teaching you all the different mechanics and stuff.
Yeah.
I am. I still have to explore the other half of Norway. Who knows how long that's going to take? But the feeling that I'm getting is I'm sort of saving England, kind of the way that I saved Novigrad for myself when I played Witcher for the first time. I spent 30 hours in the game in Witcher 3 before I went to Novigrad, and the first time I went to Novigrad, it was just mind blowing.
Yeah,
it was absolutely incredible.
I cannot wait for the text where you finally make it to England.
I mean, here's the thing, dude. If I was that excited to discover that the Norway map was twice as large as I thought, I'm probably going to lose my mind when I eventually get to England.
Yep. Let's put it this way. I stood on the border of Wales and could see the ocean on the other side of England. Not like the ocean facing France, the ocean facing Ireland.
Wow.
It was so cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think the one piece of advice I will give is, in Norway, I think you can always come back to Norway, but I think
I gotta step away real quick. I'm sorry.
Yeah. In Norway, when you start the game, definitely, take your time there. It's worth taking your time understanding the mechanics, understanding how various systems work, understanding how the collectibles works in terms of like hunting wealth, hunting some of the legendary animals because those make a return as well, and overall figuring out how the trade works, how the orlog system works, how flighting works, stuff like that. So I think it is absolutely worth spending and taking your time in Norway to acquaint yourself with the systems. Now, if you've played previous games, specifically Origins and Odyssey, it should feel familiar because, like I said, a lot of the systems are similar, but they've been tweaked enough. If you're completely new to Assassin's Creed games, then yeah, definitely take the time, as much time as you want in Norway, to really get accustomed to what exactly the game is like. One of the things I personally like doing in the game is there's a flighting system, and it's
flighting is so much fun.
Yeah, it's basically like verbal sparring, and it is really fun. I like it. It's just a fun little thing you can do. And actually, this has the effect of like basically if you do it enough and you win enough, you can actually, I found out that you can increase your charisma.
Mm-hmm.
And I am very much a charisma person in an RPG because I like talking my way out of things, as Bradford knows.
Flight then.
Yeah. So in this game, you can do that. You can get high enough charisma and have conversation options open up to you, which otherwise would not have been available.
I didn't realize that at first too when I was playing. I noticed the first time I saw one of those pop up in a conversation, I tried to figure out what the hell that meant. And then I put two and two together when I saw a dude in London who wanted to flight. And that I was like,
and you guys broed down?
We broed down. I respect you, bro.
The game does have a photo mode. I took a crap ton of pictures with it.
Those screenshots that I threw up on the screen earlier were from the photo mode.
Yeah, the photo mode is great. I've been taking tons and tons of pictures with it. Yeah, so that's kind of at least our opening thoughts. Bradford has played a lot more than I have.
Yeah, I feel like we should touch a little bit on performance though, because we're getting very different performances. The photo I'm showing... Perform. Thank you. That's not a word either. So the photo I have up on the screen is actually one of the few 4K images I have of this game. Well, you're playing it in 4K. So early on, I kind of made the decision that I wanted 60 FPS over visual, over the pure pixel count in this game, because that's just who I am. I want 60 FPS in games like this. So I've actually been playing it at 1440p. This was all before I made this decision, before there was a day one patch, even before there was a driver. This is the reason why I rebuilt my PC last week. I think we talked about it a little bit the week before, I should say, because my 2080, I can talk about it now. My 2080 was having issues with this game to where the lighting in the game was just flickering on and off. It wouldn't render. Like, I played my first few matches of Orlog without being able to see half the die faces because my 2080 was just not rendering it. There'd be characters eating out of bowls and the bowls wouldn't be there. Walls were just completely missing in spots. And I thought it was because of the fact that I didn't have a driver. There wasn't even a day one patch installed yet. I just was like, okay, this is the day one patch is going to have to fix a lot of things. And then I turned off my computer last Saturday. Not last Saturday, because last Saturday we did the extra live stream. The Saturday before. And it wouldn't turn back on. It was acting as though... It would turn on, but it was acting as though there wasn't a CPU in it. So I had to basically go out and buy a brand new CPU. I installed the motherboard I had for the CPU, because I had been planning on buying one anyways, just wasn't planning on buying one last month. So I installed everything. Turns out it was my graphics card and not the CPU. Well, the CPU was still dead. I still had to replace it. But turns out it didn't fix the problem. So I ended up having to switch the graphics card from my 2080 to one of my 2070 Supers that I reviewed last year. And I went into this not expecting to get 4K 60. If I'd have been able to get like 4K 50-ish, I'd have been pretty happy. But I'm not even getting that. This card is not meant for 4K gaming, I don't think. 1440p is kind of its sweet spot. So that's what I've been playing it at. I've got a 1440p monitor next to my 4K monitor, but I'm actually still playing mostly on my 4K monitor because it's just bigger. This is where the anti-aliasing, having that on high, is actually helping me because it's definitely a softer image. I'm actually playing it at 120% the resolution in the game with anti-aliasing set to high, and I'm getting 60 FPS. You're having a completely different experience, though, because you're trying to play it at 4K, and it's not working very well if you want 60 FPS for you, I don't think.
Yeah, so this is, and I this is kind of the entire point of my port report, and this is the entire angle that I take, is that we're at a point now where pixel quality is more important than pixel quantity.
Just real quick, do you remember when the Xbox One X was being revealed and they talked about better quality pixels and we all kind of made fun of him?
Yeah, because because what they were talking about was actual BS.
Yeah, I read your thing today and I was like, that's hilarious, because that's all I could think of in my mind was better quality pixels, and I don't think you're wrong.
These are the best quality pixels. It's like, what does that even mean, dude?
Yeah, well, now we know.
But when it comes to, well, now we know because, like, you know, we actually have hardware to do it.
DLSS.
Yeah. What do they have in the One X? Like a tablet CPU? Cool story, bro. This game has a lot of issues. If you're looking to push ultra settings, you're going to be disappointed because you're going to have serious diminishing returns in both visuals and performance. Now, in my port report, I actually provided a couple of different options in terms of settings recommendations that was targeting that 60 FPS. You know, for me personally, it was 4K because that's the resolution that I'm playing at. But if you're playing it at 1440p with like a 2070 or a 2080, or if you're playing with 1080p at, you know, and you had like a 2060 or something, these recommendations should still potentially work for you. And it's all about leveraging the in-game anti-aliasing, because the anti-aliasing option in the game actually is more of a upscaler.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're playing it at the maxed out anti-aliasing setting, it's going to be playing it at native resolution. But if you decrease the anti-aliasing to medium or low, just like you could in Origins and Odyssey, what it'll actually do is render the game internally at a lower resolution and then temporarily reproject it to upscale it to your native resolution. Now, if you pair this with a driver sharpener, like if you go to NVIDIA Control Panel or AMD's equivalent of their control panel and inject some sharpening at the driver level there.
Yeah, the Fidelity FX.
Yeah, the end result of the image is still quite crisp and quite clear. But you have the benefit of gaining some performance back. And again, I walked through this in my video, and the analysis is that you have several options here. But again, we're at this point in gaming, especially on PC, because PC is the only place you can actually do this when it comes to machine learning. The quality of the image is more important than the raw pixel count, because gaining that quality, a high quality image at a lower pixel count, is genuinely viable now. With things like DLSS, where the reconstructed image actually looks better than the native resolution image. And again, that's not hyperbole. We have several games to objectively prove this. That's the machine learning route. You have traditional methods like temporal reprojection, which is, Unreal Engine has actually a very, very good temporal upscaler within their game. And Assassin's Creed, the previous 3 games, Valhalla included, have this in their engine as well, and it works quite well. So, yeah, I give a couple of options. If you're one of the options is pushing max graphics while trading off pixel count. The other option is the inverse of that, pushing pixel count but trading raw graphics. So hopefully, again, you should be able to follow that as a sort of a foundation. And then from my recommendations, you guys can tweak your own and, to your own liking and whatnot. But that's just the performance side. The game itself has bugs. I am just running into just random instances where geometry will just randomly like disappear.
Dude, I was having go ahead.
It almost looks like the geometry is being culled. I genuinely don't know what's happening there.
You know what?
I have it recorded.
That sounds exactly like what was happening with the 2080, where the geometry was just completely missing from areas. I'd be interested to see the video you're talking about, because if it's like what I was thinking of, it may not have ever been my 2080 was an issue after all. The lighting,
was it like entire walls, or was it like random objects?
Like entire walls were missing at some point, but like random objects.
So that didn't happen to me.
Like, okay, so Eivor's axe, for instance, one of the original axes you get in the game, the shaft was missing whenever she would hold it. It would just be the axe head kind of floating.
Yeah.
And then she'd turn it, and then the shaft would appear.
Yeah, I'll have to show you, because I've put an example of like a footage of like one of the fences, and like a couple of posts in the fences would like disappear and then reappear, depending if I moved my camera.
And that's what was happening with the wall in the longhouse in Fornburg. That's exactly what was happening there.
Yeah, so yeah, you'll see. I mean, the game. So there's that issue. There's an issue with Xbox controllers. Just general stability, and this is not just on PC. I've got friends that are playing this. Allison's playing this on our PlayStation. My buddy Alex from home, he's playing it on his Xbox One S. And the game is not stable. This is far from a stable launch. It's far from a bug-free launch. It's got issues.
I galloped through Leicester on my horse today, and my horse was literally galloping on its hind legs.
Wow.
It was acting as it was reared up. Well, I forget I have a mount in this game because running through the fields and the shires is really pretty, but I also kind of want to finish this game so I can write my review. So I'm using my mount a lot to get from place A to place B. The long ship too is a godsend right now.
Dude, I love the fact that when you call your longship, you just take out your horn and just blast it.
One of the cool things too is if you're near water, you don't have to call your longship. You can just take out your horn and blast it, and your raiders will come and help you.
That's sick.
So like you can you can essentially have them come help you as long as you're near water and they can get to you. You can have them come help you if you're fighting like a particularly hard enemy, like a zealot or something, one of the Order of the Ancient Zealots. Those guys are incredibly hard to fight, even if you're massively... I've almost doubled my power level compared to one I'm fighting right now, and he's still killed me before we hopped on this podcast. But if I had been near water, I would have called my raiders to help me.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah. When you go on a raid, if you decide to kill everyone first or approach the raiding area from a different, like you don't have to always approach a monastery from the water. You can approach it from the land and then call your raiders when you're there. So
well, all right.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So wait for my full article and my video. Again, fingers crossed we can get that for Friday.
Well, I was planning on my review being done Friday, but it's probably still not going to happen unless I can get another 12 hours in tomorrow, which probably isn't going to happen because I have to do my other job tomorrow. So look for that Monday. I will have it done this weekend. If it kills me, probably will.
Okay. But yeah, that's Assassin's Creed. I'm sure to be playing this game basically. So here's the thing. This happened in 2018. This exact same scenario happened in 2018. Odyssey released. Mm-hmm. I put 50 hours into it before Red Dead. Red Dead released. So it consumed me for a month and a half. And then I went back to Odyssey and I played that for another 170 hours or so. No, 130 hours or so.
So that's what's going to happen to me right now is I'm going to finish this will be the first Assassin's Creed game I fully finish since 3. Because I could not get Unity to run properly on anything I had. Keep in mind, I played Unity on the original Xbox One.
Christ.
And then when I tried playing it on PC, my hardware still wasn't powerful enough to get it to where I wanted it. So I never finished Unity. I never finished Syndicate. I got really bored with Syndicate. I never finished Origins because I was really upset with the way the whole level gating worked. I've never played 4. I never played Black Flag.
Dude, Black Flag is legitimately one of the greatest games of all time.
Yeah, I still don't think I could go back and play it, though. And I mentioned earlier, I didn't finish Odyssey. I got about 20 hours in. I got 20 hours in on PC. I had another 15 hours on Xbox because I originally bought it on Xbox. Just couldn't do it. But I'm going to finish this game, and then I'm going to go and do what I did back in 2018, where I would finish a game that I was reviewing, and then I would spend a month playing Persona 5. Get through the next palace in Persona 5. I'm still trying to beat Persona 5 Royal, which came out in March.
Wow.
So,
yeah, what's going to happen is like Red Dead from 2018 this year, that's going to be Cyberpunk.
assuming it comes out this year.
Yeah, Cyberpunk, if it comes out on December 10th, is going to consume my life. And then I do not expect to be done with Assassin's Creed before Cyberpunk. I mean, that's just...
I'll be done with it.
That's a fool's errand.
I'll be done with it. Here's the thing, though. Like, I'm going to finish the story, but I'm going to feel like I've still got a ton of crap that I could do. Just the way that the world is set up. So.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, that's Valhalla, you guys. That's our impressions so far. Bradford obviously is ahead of me, but at least you get some thoughts about the game so far.
So we kind of touched on what we're working on. We reached the Keeds last weekend, by the way. We didn't hit our goal of $1,000 raised, but we did get about $400 in donations on Saturday alone. Those donations are still being taken. Like, just because the play date is over doesn't mean that the charity is done. Donations are open until the end of December. So if you couldn't give last Saturday, but you still want to contribute, the link is still up on the website. Just search on Extra Life as well for MMORPG.com, or just literally donate to anybody out there, because it all goes towards the hospitals that people are trying to raise money for. Ours was a local hospital for me here because I had to put in a zip code. But maybe there's someone closer to home that you want to support so that your hospital gets the benefit. Regardless, kids really get helped because of these Extra Life charities. So definitely give to that. You're working on your Assassin's Creed thing. I'm working on my Assassin's Creed thing. So you can follow the show on Twitter, guys, at GTI Podcast. You can follow Brian at Silent Fury 007. You can spoil Valhalla for him. Please don't. Actually, please don't. Don't do that. You can follow myself at LRTLR. You can follow Shank at Shank the Tank.
Yes. Visit gamingtheindustry.com for an RSS feed of this show. You can also find the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, and whatnot. Search Gaming the Industry, and we should hopefully pop up. Join us every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time for new episodes. I stream to my Twitch and YouTube. Bradford streams to the MMORPG channels on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
The video on demand versions will be up on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Shank, THTank. Look up the Gaming the Industry playlist, and there you go. You can listen to all the shows there. That's about it for the show this week. Guys, let's go ahead and say our goodbyes.
Bye.
Peace out, and continue to wear a mask, people.
Yeah, please do that.